So I've made these knees up, they've come up well. And I've also, as you saw, tapped threads into each end. Boy, has this been challenging. I also do some catch-up work and get on top of it. It does look different in here now though, I quite like it. So I've made these knees up, they've come up well, and they've had the first coat of paint, they need another coat. And so the plan will be to get them in place, mark those holes out, and drill the holes in the frames and the deck beams. What I've elected to do is, all things considered, I think the most suitable way around it is to just tap threads in the knees themselves. I'll be able to do that, keep it nice and square outside of the boat, which I won't be able to do in the frame itself or the deck beam. And then after passing the bolt through both the frame and the deck beam, I'll be able to thread them into these holes, put some Loctite onto the bolt itself, and then tighten that up with a nut and washer. That should definitely provide a lot of support. The other thing that I'm going to be doing is using this Fix FP100. It is, as it says here, the strongest bonding agent that Fix-Tech have, and I'm assured that once on, this will not let go. So after that, I think that that should get me out of trouble from what I've done by drilling these holes through the frames. Well, who'd have thought that this little job would take so long? Business as usual here doing boat work. I've finally got them done though. The holes drilled, and then I've got the little pieces cut out of that plywood so that I can fit the bolt through so that it sits flush against the frame without interruption. But yeah, it's just mentally tiring more than the physical, because you know, the smallest of things. Of course, had I known about having these just lower and against the frame earlier, I wouldn't have even had this work to do. I just didn't investigate that, and so didn't know. But they're done, thank goodness. It's one down, 3 more to go. But I'm not going to do those other ones just now. I'm going to mix up some paint, get some paint on these holes, and put a second coat of paint on those knees so that tomorrow I'll be able to fit this one and then can move on with finishing the lining here in the V-berth. What I'm up to now is it's time to put some threads into this flat bar which I'm using as the knees. Given that they're M8 bolts, I'll be using a 7mm drill bit just to open those holes up a little bit. I drilled them to 6.5. Then with a bit of oil, I will use the tap, and hopefully I can get that nice and straight through the hole, and then we'll check the hole with putting that bolt in.
1,000 times before, baby, it's now or never. Gotta leave this town, and I know what you're asking for. You say it's out of my reach, but I can't pretend no more. 'Cause for as long as I remember, it's been stuck inside my mind. You can't ask me to surrender.
So this has just been a bit of a quick paint, nothing fancy. I just thought I'd top coat them with the polyurethane white, the same as everything else. I put 2 coats of polyurethane on top just to, you know, give it a bit more protection. I figure do it once. When it's buried away, you know, I've done the work that I can to protect it. So 4 were required to do what I needed to do, which is not so bad. The other thing I'll be doing in terms of fitting them is using a bit of this marine grease. I'm actually going to use the grease in the threads themselves. The idea is I've already drilled holes through the frame and the deck beam, which I'll pass the hot dip galvanised bolts through with the marine grease on those threads. Hopefully those threads will be protected over time. And then the other thing I'll be doing is putting a nut on the end of the bolt. So the idea will be to use some FMP 100 fixed tech adhesive, which does not let go. Pass the bolt through the hole, through the thread with the marine grease on it, nut on the other side, tighten them up on all 4 holes, and I really believe that will give ample strength and recover the error that I made. And just a shout out of thanks to the marine engineer who was able to point this out to me at the right time, that I could actually do something about it without too much trouble. So thanks very much. Because this panel is where the knee is going to go, it means that I need to take a little bit out of this panel so that it will pass over that knee. I knew that I had to put the knees in, but until I had them made and in place, I didn't know where that notch was going to go exactly. So now that I do, I've just marked it out, and that's what I'll be doing now. Notch that out, and then obviously it needs 2, maybe 3 coats of the epoxy. The other thing, because this bit of batten will be involved, which goes against this panel like this and will be fixed to the panel, and then this will allow me to screw through the batten into the bulkhead, this will also need to be notched out.
'Cause it's keeping me alive. And I say it might take me nowhere. Anywhere is better than the places I have been. Sunsets in my rear.
Boy, has this been challenging. I've got 3 of the 4 bolts in, and the one that's not in, I've had in when I was dry fitting it, wouldn't you know it. I've decided what I'll do. It's so close, it's just agonisingly close. I've been working on trying to get that hole for over an hour. Because I want a tight fit, I don't want to just drill the holes bigger or drill the thread out. I do want to thread it in.
A projection of my old life faded. You say it's out of my reach, but I can't pretend no more.
Okay, so here's the situation. I don't know if you can see how off that is, but it is off just enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to re-drill that with a 7mm drill bit and then re-tap, and I think what will end up happening is both the frame and the knee will end up being drilled out a little bit, and then they'll both get some thread on them. And I think, all things considered, I've got 3 bolts into the threads and it's a very tight fit, and so this 4th one, although slightly compromised, I think will be absolutely fine. Well, in. Finally. Goodness, that took a long time. I hopefully have learnt some lessons on this one so that the other 3 will be a bit quicker.
You can't ask me to surrender when reaching for the dream keeps me alive.
Looking good so far. I think that's a wrap.
'Cause it's keeping me alive. Lost outside of nowhere. A stormy rain tried to wash away the dream. Staff wanted says a worn out
Well, that gets those in. It's always the easiest part, getting them in, making them, all that epoxy, correcting things. That's the timely part, but the installation just does not take long, and clearly the most rewarding part. So now that I've finished the main lining panels for the hull here in the V-berth, it's time to move on to the next thing. What I've decided to do is I'm going to move into the saloon area. The reason for that is I want to get a couple of bulkheads in, one on the port side and one on the starboard side. And the reason for that is that's going to be the first bits of bulkheads which will be where the seating will go on either side. On the right hand side, somewhat of a sofa, loungy area, and on the port side it'll be the dining seating area. Underneath that area is going to be a water tank on each side, so that's where the water storage will be. And once I get those bulkheads up, I'll then be able to start measuring for the sizes that I'm going to need to make up these water tanks. So I'm looking forward to that, because what it means is I can continue doing things and I'll have somebody else doing a fairly significant part of the boat work that I'll need going ahead, and they'll just be able to be dropped in place. So that's how I'm going to tackle that. It does look different in here now though, and I quite like it. Stay tuned, it's more exciting times ahead, because I shift work areas into the saloon area where I get started on making the seating areas, which also means that I can get those water tanks drawn up where I'll be getting them professionally made for me. And the good catch-up work continues. It's been good. I've knocked off a lot of little jobs. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell and share. I'd really appreciate that.